This is the story of the SMS Emden and the stand she took against Allied shipping in the Pacific and Indian Oceans during the Great War.
First, we must set the stage for this intriguing event. The mood before the outbreak of the First World War was interesting to say the least. The seas were held by the vast British Navy. The British government knew that their survival was based around their naval superiority. 66% of the British Isles' food supply was imported, and internationally, 43% of all merchant tonnage was in British hands. For the British, the one great fear was that they would lose their supremacy and their control of the globe in a clash of equally strengthened navies. The German Kaiser had proclaimed that Germany's future is on the water. Germany rushed to build a massive navy, one that could rival the strength of the British Navy. Generally, during this period in time, everybody was waiting to see whether or not the German and British navies would clash. The Kaiser believed that the formation of the German fleet would show the British that they were as equal strength as the British themselves. Therefore, they would become friends. The Kaiser's ambassadors told him this was flawed logic, for the British, upon hearing of the creation of the German fleet, realized that hostility and conflict would arise in the future. Apart from all this going on, the world was entering a new era of ship design, the era of the modern battleship. To this point, the world had not seen what an armored and powerfully equipped cruiser could accomplish. The SMS Emden's war cruise demonstrated the power that an individual cruiser possessed. Afterwards, the cruiser became more and more widespread throughout the world. It is fair to say that the exploits of the SMS Emden and many other cruisers contributed to the demise of the battleship itself, even at this early stage of its development.
What did Emden accomplish? She sank or captured 25 Allied ships, a feat unheard of for a single cruiser. She tied up all Allied ships in the Indian Ocean, an effect no cruiser had inflicted before. She raided and caused substantial damage to Penang and Madras, and she destroyed a British radio station. All of these things no cruiser had done before.
Shall we go to the beginning of the cruise? Tsingtao, China. News of the war reached Maximilian von Spee's Asiatic Squadron. Von Spee was to take the squadron back to Germany. Von Spee, however, allowed the Emden to stay and go on an independent war cruise supported only by the Emden's collier, Markomania. The Emden's able captain was none other than corvette captain Karl von Müller. Müller started the cruise from the Marianas Islands on the 13th of August, 1914. He headed towards the East Indies. 2 days later, the Emden discovered the remains of a German radio station on the island of the Yap. The station was bombarded by British cruisers. Next move for the Emden was to head to the Palau Island group to meet with a collier. The collier was not to be found. They did, however, find a steamer from which Müller took on extra men. Müller now wanted to head into the Indian Ocean and begin the war cruise in earnest. Now the Emden continued on her way to the Indian Ocean. On the 22nd, Emden crossed the equator. Müller wanted to meet up with the steamer Tannenfels on the Timor Island and take on supplies. Upon reaching Timor, a Dutch warship, the Tromp, forced the Emden and her collier out of the area. The island was neutral, and Müller was violating international neutrality laws. After the Tromp was out of sight, Müller pushed back through neutral territory to get to the Lombok Strait. Müller's second-in-command, Muke, thought that they should disguise the Emden as a British ship by adding a false funnel. With the false fourth funnel in place, the Emden passed into the Indian Ocean and began preying on Allied trade. The first prize was a Greek steamer, the 4,000-ton Poros, carrying contraband cargo. Mueller captured the ship, and with the information provided in the ship's logs, he headed towards the shipping routes near Ceylon.
It was there in the Ceylon shipping lanes where the Emden displayed its might. In a period of days, the Emden destroyed 6 Allied ships: the Indus, Lovat, Killen, Diplomat, Trabach, and Clan Matheson. Mueller also captured 1 ship, the Kabinga, which he filled with all the prisoners collected thus far.
After sinking 6 ships and capturing 2 Allied ships, the Allied shipping within the area knew that the Emden had arrived, and Mueller could no longer find ships. Mueller decided now to raid the port of Madras. Upon arriving, Emden fired 125 shells into the port, scoring hits on the large tanks of oil belonging to the Burma Oil Company. No return fire hit the Emden, and she successfully left the burning port, heading towards Colombo. By now, 14 major Allied ships were after the Emden. Despite the hunting ships, the Emden sank 2 more ships, the King Lud and the Timeric. Emden captured the Greyfevail to carry the captured crews. The Burlesque was soon captured and used as another collier for the Emden. Heading to the Maldives, the Emden sank both the Foil and Ribera. Heading from the Maldives to the Chagos and from there to Diego Garcia, Mueller cruised. It was in Diego Garcia where the Emden benefited from a Frenchman who had no idea the war was going on. The Emden was refitted and fixed up. After repairs were complete, Emden steamed to India once again, where Clan Grant, Benmore, and Toiles were sunk. By now, Allied ships were closing in. Marcomannia was sunk and Port Poyas was captured, leaving only the Burlesque as a supporting collier for the Emden. After sinking the Ponrabble, the St. Egbert was captured and prisoners were unloaded. And right afterwards, the Exford and Chilcana were sunk as well. Soon afterwards, the Emden was nearly spotted by the Hampshire and Empress of Russia. Mueller decided to coal and prepare for a raid against Penang. The raid against Penang resulted in the sinking of the Russian Jemtug and the French Mosquet. The Emden soon afterwards captured the Newburn and sent her with the wounded French from the Mosquet to Cotoraha. From this point onward, Mueller headed towards the Sunda Strait near Java. This was a natural choke point for shipping within that area. No ships were found, and Mueller made the fateful decision to destroy the British radio station on Direction Island. The station was successfully destroyed, but the HMAS Sydney was alerted by the station before it was destroyed. The German landing party went to the beach only to see the Emden steaming away to escape the Sydney. The Sydney was faster and more powerful than the Emden. The Emden did get 4 salvos off and was able to destroy Sydney's fire control system. However, the Sydney pulled back out of the Emden's gun range and let her more powerful guns batter the Emden. Mueller did not step down. He maneuvered the Emden to torpedo the Sydney, but was battered and finally disabled. The Emden made a last-ditch effort to save herself by grounding herself upon a reef, and it was there that the HMS Sydney bombarded her to the point of destruction. After an extremely successful war cruise, the Emden captured or sunk 25 Allied ships. The Emden took a stand against the British monopoly on trade within the Indian Ocean and took a stand for the German Navy.
When it came to single-handedly raiding Allied shipping in the Indian and Pacific Oceans, a large, powerful battleship was not used, but a cruiser. The exploits of the Emden have earned it the title of most celebrated cruiser of World War I, and due in part to her influence, the world's navies today do not depend upon huge, expensive battleships, but small, powerful cruisers. Here is to the Emden, the courageous cruiser of the Pacific.